Welcome back to the channel, Skytech-Lens, where we break down the biggest stories shaking up the auto world. Today, we're unpacking a seismic event. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi are pulling out of the US market, all thanks to Trump's steep import tariffs. This move has left a massive void in the American automotive landscape, impacting jobs, supply chains, and the entire industry. Tens of thousands of American workers now face an uncertain future as a multi-billion-dollar trade relationship dissolves almost overnight. The ripple effects are vast, touching local economies and the core of U.S. manufacturing competitiveness. What sparked this exit, and what does it mean for American car buyers and manufacturers? Can domestic brands step up, or has this protectionist gamble backfired? Let's dive into the 5 key developments driving this high-stakes standoff. It all began with a tweet, one that wasn't just political noise, but a declaration of economic war. The Trump administration slapped a 25% tariff on all imported cars and auto parts, aiming to protect American jobs and force foreign automakers to build in the US. For German brands, this was an existential threat. A Porsche 911, for example, suddenly cost $25,000 more overnight. Profits evaporated, stock prices plummeted, and emergency meetings were called in Munich, Stuttgart, and Ingolstadt. German automakers argued they were already major U.S. investors. BMW's Spartanburg plant was the largest U.S. automotive exporter by value. But Washington held firm. The tariffs weren't a bargaining chip. They were the new reality. The tariffs also wrecked global supply chains. A modern car is built from parts sourced worldwide. The trust that had underpinned decades of transatlantic trade was shattered. The German exodus was no longer a distant threat, it was happening. The world watched as the first domino fell. The announcement was a coordinated bombshell. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi would withdraw from the US market. Dealerships across the country, many family-run for generations, faced extinction as their main products vanished. Phones rang with worried customers, salespeople scrambled for new jobs, owners faced empty showrooms and mounting debt. The National Automobile Dealers Association called it a man-made economic crisis. The pain spread to suppliers. Companies in Tennessee and Silicon Valley lost contracts overnight, putting real families and communities at risk. BMW's Spartanburg plant, once a powerhouse of American exports, saw production shift to Mexico and China, gutting local jobs and export revenue. Ports like Baltimore saw traffic plummet, and logistics workers faced layoffs as the supply chain ground to a halt. German automakers had also invested heavily in US R&D, especially in Silicon Valley. With their exit, these centers closed, ending collaborations with American universities and startups. The economic impact was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of jobs lost, tens of billions wiped from GDP, and states like South Carolina and Tennessee facing budget crises. The very communities the tariffs were meant to help became epicenters of the fallout. The ripple effect exposed a fundamental misunderstanding of the global economy. German automakers weren't just selling cars, they were woven into the fabric of the US economy. Their departure left a gaping wound, and the promised benefits of protectionism never materialized. Instead, the result was closed businesses, lost jobs, and shattered confidence. The American auto landscape was changed forever. The shockwaves reached every corner of the industry. Innovation slowed, and the US lost its edge. The cost of isolation was clear. The damage was done. The question now, what comes next? The US auto industry was left to pick up the pieces. As the US market closed, China opened its doors wide. German automakers didn't just shift sales, they moved their future to China, the world's largest auto market. Billions in planned US investments were rerouted to new factories in Shanghai, Changchun, and Beijing, now global production hubs. The X-Series SUVs once exported from South Carolina were now built in China and shipped worldwide. Even more significant, German R&D moved east. Partnerships with Chinese tech giants like Baidu and Tencent accelerated innovation in electric and autonomous vehicles. China became the new center of gravity for automotive technology. The US, once the trendsetter, risked becoming a bystander. The Chinese government seized the opportunity, offering German companies unprecedented access and incentives. Mercedes-Benz moved its global EV battery research HQ to Beijing, Audi launched its flagship electric sedan in Shanghai, BMW partnered with CATL on a massive battery plant. The message was clear: the future of German automotive innovation now resided in China. This new Sino-German alliance threatened to leave the US and Japan behind in the race for next-gen mobility. For the US, the consequences were dire. Not just lost jobs and investment, but lost influence over the industry's future. The tariffs meant to protect American strength instead accelerated a transfer of power to China. German automakers found a more strategic partner in the East. The global balance of automotive power had shifted. The US was left watching from the sidelines. The world's automotive future was being written in China. The US had lost its seat at the table. On paper, the German exit should have been Detroit's dream, no more luxury competition. But the reality was far more complicated. Detroit's automakers were also hit by tariffs, driving up costs for parts sourced globally. Ford and GM lost billions, cut investments and laid off workers, the very opposite of the policy's intent. The absence of German competition led to complacency. Without BMW and Mercedes pushing them, Detroit risked stagnation. Cadillac and Lincoln saw a short-term sales bump, but struggled to win over loyal German car owners. The risk US brands could fall behind global standards, repeating the mistakes of the 1970s when Detroit, insulated from competition, produced subpar cars. Retaliatory tariffs from Europe and China also hurt US exports, trapping Detroit within America's borders. Rising costs, plant closures, and layoffs followed. The UAW, once supportive, now protested job losses. The promise of a manufacturing renaissance never materialized. Instead, Detroit was left with a protected but weaker market. Innovation slowed, and global competitiveness suffered. The field was cleared, but the game was smaller and less profitable. Detroit won a battle it never wanted, and paid a steep price. The victory was hollow, the future uncertain. The lesson protectionism can backfire. The cost of isolation was higher than anyone expected. The German exit triggered a global trade war. The EU retaliated with targeted tariffs on iconic American products, Harley-Davidson, Bourbon, Levi's, and more. US exporters faced steep disadvantages as the EU forged new trade deals with Japan, Canada, and South America. Automakers worldwide scrambled to regionalize supply chains, duplicating factories and R&D centers to avoid future tariffs. This shift was expensive and inefficient, driving up costs and reducing consumer choice. The dream of a seamless global marketplace shattered into protectionist fragments. The US market walled itself off, while German innovation centered in China. Different regions began developing cars to different standards, slowing innovation in electrification and autonomy. Trust in global trade was fundamentally damaged. International companies now saw the US as a risky place to invest. The Section 232 tariffs sent a message: rules could change overnight. The global fallout was immense, reshaping the auto industry and global trade itself. Retaliation, reorganization, and eroded trust became the new normal. The world shifted from globalization to regional blocks. The cost higher prices, less innovation, and fractured markets. The US set this transformation in motion with a single policy. The consequences will be felt for decades. The global auto industry will never be the same. Empty showrooms where BMWs and Mercedes once gleamed now symbolize a fractured partnership in a more isolated US auto market. The challenge for American automakers is clear. Can they fill the void left by German brands and rebuild their reputation for luxury and innovation? Cadillac and Lincoln must convince buyers that American luxury can match the world's best, a tall order in a protected market. Policymakers face tough questions: how to rebuild trust, attract investment, and make US brands globally competitive again. The road to recovery means reversing protectionist policies and re-engaging with the global auto community. The shift to electric and autonomous vehicles adds urgency. German innovation is now intertwined with China, and the US risks falling behind. The loss of German brands is a daily reminder of the stakes. Can the US auto sector pivot from crisis to a stronger, more competitive future? The final lap is underway, and the US auto sector's global standing hangs in the balance. The race isn't over yet. So there you have it, a story of political gambles, economic shockwaves, and a global industry in turmoil. The departure of Germany's automotive giants is a watershed moment with consequences that will ripple for years. We've seen the fallout: shuttered dealerships, struggling suppliers, and Detroit's dilemma. The void left by BMW, Mercedes, and Audi is more than a market gap. It's a gap in technology and competition. The road ahead for the US auto sector is uncertain, but the debate is far from over. Now we want to hear from you. Did tariffs help or hurt the US auto industry? Can domestic brands fill the luxury gap? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel for more updates.